Welcome to episode 241 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Lou Simon, who I had on previously in episode number 137. Check that out if you haven't already as we talk about her background in that episode. Today we are going to talk in depth about her latest film called 3, so stay tuned for that interview. A quick note from this week's sponsor, Sure Scripts. Their final deadline for this year's screenplay contest is midnight, August 31st. They have a feature category, a TV category, and a shorts category. Sure Scripts is going to run a mini logline contest for SYS listeners, and the winner of this logline contest will get one free entry into one of their main contests. Just send an email to contact@surescripts.com with selling your screenplay in the subject line and a 25-word logline in the body of the email by Thursday, August 30th, 2018. Sure Scripts will sign you up for their free newsletter and give away one free entry into their contest. Again, just send an email to contact@surescripts.com with selling your screenplay in the subject line and your 25-word logline in the body of the email. I will put all of this in the show notes, so just go to episode number 241 and you will see all of this information there. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread the word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 241. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing filmmaker Lou Simon. Here is the interview. Welcome back, Lou, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking with me today.
Oh, I'm so glad you had me back.
So you were on the podcast about 2 years ago, and I'm going to refer people back to that episode. It's episode number 137. I will link to it in the show notes. And in that episode, we talk about sort of your genesis, how you got into the industry, transition from a lawyer to a filmmaker. So I will refer people to that. And today, I think we'll just dig right into your latest film, 3. To start out, maybe you can give us a quick log line or pitch. What is your most recent film all about?
Well, 3 is the story of a man and a woman who decide to kidnap the alleged rapist of the woman, that decide that they're going to kidnap him and they're going to extract his confession on video because he has concocted an alibi. And so he's getting scot-free. So they are going to do whatever it takes
to get the confession.
To get the confession. The problem is that there are moments where there's doubt whether he actually did it or not.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis of it?
It was a combination of things, things just kind of came together at the same time. I was looking to do a script that had a very limited cast, very limited locations. And also my dear friend Anela McGinnis had to bow out of my last movie because she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had promised her that, she was going to be fine and that I was going to write a script just for her. So I was looking for something for her to do. And I thought of the movie Bound. Remember that one?
Yeah, sure.
And I thought, well, something like that, something along those lines of, having it, for some reason, 2 people kidnap a third person, and I still didn't really have it completely together as to what would be the reason. And then all of a sudden, after her double mastectomy, she posted a picture of herself topless as a form of empowerment, and I got that, but at the same time, I was kind of like a little shocked by it. And I thought, wow, that's a really powerful image. And only my crazy mind could turn that even darker. And I started thinking about, rape and having that be a side effect from, or like the insult added to injury, in a rape.
Hmm.
And just the rest just kind of came together after that.
Okay, perfect. So on your previous films, Hazmat and All Girls Weekend, both of those films were distributed by Uncorked Entertainment. This one is going through Uncorked as well. And I wonder if you can talk about that relationship a little bit. I interview a lot of filmmakers that are coming through Uncorked, so I think the listeners are well versed in sort of what sort of material they do. And I even had Keith, who is the CEO over at Uncorked, I even had him on for an episode to kind of.
I listened to that one, and he said he loves me. I have it on, I have the proof.
Yep. So I'd be curious to kind of hear what your relationship is with him, and maybe we can take it back to Hazmat, since that was your first film working with him. How did you meet him to begin with?
Through a sales agent.
Okay.
And at the time, he had just started. He maybe had been around maybe like a year or two. So it sounded a little bit risky. There wasn't a lot that you could gauge from previous sales whether we were going to be able to get our money back or not. But the fact that he had worked at Blockbuster made us think, well, this guy really knows what he's doing. So we were a little scared, but we decided to go through with it when the sales agent said, that we should. And then it worked out really well. Hazmat to this day, I get a check every 3 months. So I'm very glad we took that chance.
Yeah, sure. So then what on the second film with All Girls Weekend, did you just go and complete that film and then take it back to Keith, or did you work with him a little bit before you actually shot the film?
No, I just completed it on my own. To be honest, I didn't even take that to him either. At that point I was like thinking that he wouldn't want to do it again, so I didn't bring that to him. That also, I had another sales agent, and that sales agent brought it to him. And he said, why didn't you just come to me directly? I was like, I don't know. It didn't even occur to me. I felt like he wouldn't want to talk to me directly. I figured you would want to talk through the sales agent. And so by the time that I did 3, I was like, okay, now I know I can go to Keith, directly. And I just went to him, and I was like, okay, before I give it to a sales agent, what do you think? And I was very pleasantly surprised that he liked it and he wanted to do it.
Yeah, perfect. So you didn't go to him though before you shot the film. You completed the film and then took it to him once you had at least a rough cut or something to show him.
I remember. I'm pretty sure that I saw that he had a couple of rape revenge films. So I'm almost positive that I asked him. I know I asked my sales agent. I don't know if I asked him, but I'm almost positive I did. I did ask him, how do they do in sales? Is that a popular genre that will do well in sales? And he said, they do well for me. So I know this. I did the same thing with sales agent. I said, okay, if I make this film, this is what it's about. Will it sell internationally? And that was less of a positive response, but I thought that we were doing it at a budget that was low enough that we could recover it, even if our international sales weren't that great.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about your writing process a little bit. We did dive into that in sort of at least a general sense in episode 137. Again, I'll link to that in the show notes. But maybe we can talk about the writing of 3. Maybe to start out, you can just talk about sort of your outlining phase versus opening up the script and writing it. How much time did you spend outlining the script, and then how much time did you spend actually writing it?
Well, I think that this script really should be the what not to do.
Okay.
Writers. Because what happened was I thought of the idea, or general idea, in 2015 sometime. And I had the idea, I approached the actors that I thought would be good in it. Because since it was such a small cast, it really had to be. I knew I was a shoo-in because the script was written for her, but it was who else I was going to cast, and I had two other actors in mind, and I actually approached them before I wrote it and made sure that they were interested. I knew that I didn't have a large budget, so it wasn't like I was going to start getting big names or something like that. But I thought about it for a long time. I kept changing the story in my head. And that's always my process. I do take a long time to actually sit down and write because I want to make sure that I know everything that's going to happen before I write it. So I kept, whenever I had an idea, I would write it down in my notes. I have, an app on my phone where I write down every thought, that comes through my head. And I watched a lot of films to get more ideas. Then by January, I had a pretty basic idea what was going to happen in terms of what the twists were going to be. But in April, I actually went and scouted the location, and I actually got the crew, had most of the cast, and I still hadn't written a script. I had already set everything up to start filming on July 6th. So
this was in March.
This was in March, and we had no script. So a month before, like in June, after I had already seen the location, I knew what the place looked like. So I wrote the script just to that location. Was when I finally, and everybody kept saying, when am I going to see the script? I'm like, no, it's, I'm working on another draft of it, but it'll be ready. And it was in June, like almost a month to the day before we were set to start production, that I finally wrote the script.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I was waiting to the last minute. So you just mentioned that you had some sort of an app to collect ideas that come through. What app do you use? I'd just be curious to hear about that.
It's just a basic app that has like to-do notes, shopping lists. It's like a very, there's like 20 of them that you could use. But yeah, I have one folder that's called story ideas.
Oh, I see.
Every time there's a ton of stuff there. Like I could show you, and it's just like, it probably, if you print it out, probably be like 100 pages long.
Okay, yeah. And I'm curious, just in terms of specifically with this story, how does this fit into like the Me Too movement? I mean, you have a woman accusing a man of rape, a man, trying to deny it. How did that play into it? And I'd be curious to hear if you got any pushback or anything on the distribution end. Was that a concern for Keith, or was that potentially a selling point for the movie, or does it have any bearing on it at all?
I mean, he didn't say anything one way or the other, so I definitely think I don't think it was for him. When I started thinking of the idea, and even when we filmed it, there was no Me Too movement yet. And part of the reason why I thought that, I kind of wanted to write this story was because, in 2015, 2016, there were like several cases where men were found guilty of rape, and then we're given like really like nothing, 6 months time served and all this other, these, and the judges would say, well, we don't want to ruin their lives. And it's like, are you kidding? Like her life is ruined for the rest of her life, and this guy, this guy shouldn't serve, a few years in jail for this. So I mean, like a lot of women, I was really, really outraged that it had become so trivialized. I remember a girl in South Florida that was raped by 4 boys, and they got nothing more, more than just, a couple months in juvenile. But I mean, that girl is scarred for life.
Yeah.
So at that time, nobody was talking about it, and it's kind of weird how this is all now has become such a huge thing, because now it's just now I'm just another voice, but it's still a voice that I'm glad that I have the opportunity to have a voice and say that is important, that we take victims seriously. And there's a lot of that in the script where when he's like, did it really happen? So the timing couldn't have been more fortuitous, I guess.
Yeah.
That all this happen at the same time.
Yeah. So you mentioned at one point you asked your distributor about I guess it's a horror subgenre, a rape revenge subgenre. Maybe you could talk about your researching of that a little bit, and what did you find out about that subgenre in general, and how did you approach writing this script to give it some original twists? Building on the subgenre, but also giving it some original twists.
I mean, to me, for me, obviously the most famous one is I Spit on Your Grave, right? Um, this is not that. So I don't want people to think that they're going to watch that, this film and they're going to see that. This is far from that. Even the rape scene is very mild. It's not something that, that's going to be gruesome and difficult to watch because it lasts forever. So it's not that. It's really more the aftermath of that. And there isn't a bunch of people being killed because she's getting back to everybody. This is more of a thriller. It's a psychological thriller. Somebody called it a psychological horror the other day, and I think that fits very well. So it's more this cat and mouse game between the guy who was kidnapped and his kidnappers, and it's primarily the man who's doing the interrogation. So, and he wasn't there. He's caught in the middle of whether to believe her or whether to believe this man who keeps saying he's innocent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more about the twists and turns about like who's telling the truth, who's who to believe, and it's that there's a bit of torture because that's what makes each time that he meets with a guy just that much more dangerous to the man. But it's not about the torture. The torture is just a reason to give him to tell the truth or to tell a lie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very different.
Yeah. And I'm curious, when you had the film finished, did you get any pushback from Keith or any other distributors? Was there any changes that need to be made? Or at that stage, you've got a completed film and maybe they're going to change the trailer and the poster, but they're not going to mess with the finished film?
Yeah, I mean, my experience, there's so much content out there right now that I don't think they have time to give you that kind of feedback. I think they watch your trailer, they'll watch 10 minutes into the movie. By that time, you haven't grabbed their attention, they're going to turn it off. And all you're going to get is a pass. They're not going to sit there and give you feedback or tell you make this change or make that change. Unless you have a personal relationship. Like maybe now, after 3 films, you could be like, hey, Lou, I really like this, but I don't like this. Can you reshoot that? And even then, I doubt it. I mean, he has so many movies that he could choose that he doesn't need to give that much work to any one thing. Plus, he knows we're limited in budget. I mean, reshoots are terrible, so expensive. So, yeah, you have to make the best product you can the first time because you're more than likely you're not going to get any kind of feedback that you can use to make it better.
Yeah. So I'm curious if we can talk just a little bit about raising the money for this. It sounds like you had everything pretty much in place before you even wrote the script, which is probably a little unusual. But maybe you can talk to that. Are you just taking your money from All Girls Weekend, reinvesting that? Are you going out and getting new financiers? Maybe you can talk a little bit about just how you finance these projects.
This is still from what we made from Hazmat, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, Hazmat did really, really well. So I mean, between new sales from All Girls Weekend and then sales still pending. Everything that we made on Hazmat did not get reinvested completely to All Girls Weekend. So we still have money left over from that, and then the new sales from All Girls Weekend. So, and it's about the same budget as All Girls Weekend.
Okay, perfect. What advice would you have for people that are trying to break into the business? What would you recommend that a young screenwriter go and do?
Get another job. Go do copywriting. I mean, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know if I've broken in. To me, I'm still just doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Other than a couple of paid gigs for other people on the indie level, I can't really say that I've broken in. So if they find out, they should tell
Okay.
me.
Perfect. And what's next for you? What do you have on the docket coming up?
Well, I'm shooting in September my segment of a horror anthology with all female horror
Oh,
directors,
okay.
which is going to be fun. It's kind of fun collaborating with other women. And then in for next year, besides, I have a documentary which is completely different. It's about saving the elephants in Thailand. And besides that, I am probably going to be developing the script that I have about. It's more of a sci-fi horror. It's about after the end of the world, man wakes up and he's the only man alive in a colony of all women.
Hmm. And so are you still, so you just mentioned that you still feel like you're still trying to break in or trying to get ahead. Do you still, when you finish script or do you have scripts out there, are you still like pursuing that as an angle? You're a filmmaker on the one hand, but you're also trying to pursue just screenwriting as, a screenwriter. You would be the writer and nothing else?
In theory, yes, but I mean, I'll be honest. Am I really doing the work to? I mean, that's a full-time job in and of itself. So, and then the films really take up so much space, so much time.
Hmm.
Producing is probably 90% of what I do. And so by the time that I complete production, in one and then go through the whole post-production process and then the film festival will run and then, the sales and the marketing, I really don't have time to pursue my career as a screenwriter or as a director by itself.
Hmm.
Um, that would require like another one of me because our films just take up so much of my time.
Yeah.
So unless somebody watches one of my films and says, "Well, I love the way she writes," it's not going to happen because I just don't have time to really be out there, you know, submitting and
Hmm.
and all that stuff. I barely have time to sleep sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand completely. So, what is your goal, like long term, 5 years, 10 years down the road, when you come back on the podcast and we're talking like, if everything goes according to plan, what do you see yourself doing in 5 or 10 years?
I mean, I would love to be able to be making the same type of films. I mean, I definitely like the horror thriller genre. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. Um, but it'd be great to be doing it for a studio or, even if it's not like a major studio or a bigger production company where I don't have to be the person that takes care of everything,
Hmm.
from development all the way till, sales and marketing so that I can really spend more time doing the creative stuff and less time on the business stuff because, creative is probably 10% of my time. The business part of it is 90%.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I just like to wrap up the interviews by just asking the guests what they've seen recently that they really like. We're in this golden age of TV. Maybe there's some TV shows you've enjoyed recently. Just anything you've watched that you thought would be interesting to screenwriters.
Gosh, I do feel like I did see something recently that was really, really good. Oh, the autopsy of Jane Doe.
Hmm.
That was really good, really effective. And it's, I mean, talk about something you can do on a small budget, even though, I mean, the special effects that were really good and it has some really good name talent. But, I mean, it was basically two characters for the most part in one location. And it was so well done and so effective. I think that if you're going to be making your own film, that's a really good one to watch to get ideas of how to do a contained thriller that's still as effective as if you had millions of dollars.
Hmm. So perfect, perfect. Yeah, I have not heard of that, so I will check that one out. Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like for three? How can people check it out?
It actually comes out tomorrow, August 7th,
Okay.
on VOD, and then it's going to be on TV on September 11th.
Okay, perfect, perfect. What's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I'll round up for the show notes, but you can tell us that stuff now.
Well, everything is either under, I mean, the links to everything's under, it's in our website, whitelotusmovies.com. But you can usually just, if it's at Miss Lou Simon, that's about all my handles and everything.
Okay. Perfect. Well, Lou, I appreciate you coming on and talking with me again. Good luck with this film, and I look forward to hearing about your next film.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, Ashley.
I just want to talk quickly about SYS Select. It's a service for screenwriters to help them sell their screenplays and get writing assignments. The first part of the service is the SYS Select Screenplay Database. Screenwriters upload their screenplays along with a logline, synopsis, and other pertinent information like budget and genre, and then producers search for and hopefully find screenplays that they want to produce. Dozens of producers are in the system looking for screenplays right now. I launched this service at the beginning of this year, and we've already started to see some success stories. You can check out SYS podcast episode 222 with Steve Deering. He was the first official success story to come out of the SYS Select database. You can learn more about all of this by going to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. When you join SYS Select, you get access to the screenplay database that I just mentioned, along with all the other services that we're providing to SYS Select members. Those services include the monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of 400 producers who are actively seeking writers and screenplays. Each SYS Select member can pitch one screenplay in this monthly newsletter. We also have partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads sites, so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, we've been getting 5 to 10 high-quality paid leads per week. These leads run the gamut. There's producers looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. They're looking for shorts, they're looking for features, TV and web series pilots, all types of different projects. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. Also, you can get access to the SYS Select forum where we will help you with your logline and query letter and answer any screenwriting related questions that you might have. Also in the forum are all the recorded screenwriting classes that I've done over the years, so you'll have access to all of those as well. The classes cover every part of the writing process, from concept to outlining to the first act, second act, third act, as well as other topics like writing short films and pitching your projects in person. Once again, if this sounds like something you would like to learn more about, please go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer Mike Mahal. He's an actor and writer and recently co-wrote and directed a limited series TV show called Bronx, SIU. He also lives in Louisiana, so he's far from Hollywood. We talk about how he got this show going, and we also talk about his life as an actor and writer living outside of Hollywood. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.